Hi everyone. Today I'm joined by the wonderful Nick Bottini. But before I say something about Nick Bottini and who he is to me, I would just like to say that this conversation we're about to have is going to be a series of conversations, and it's about a program coming up, which is the Empowerment Blueprint program, a 6 months program I'm creating because I wanted to share with people what is possible for them if they feel stuck at some level. They might have created whatever they wanted to create and they're feeling stuck. And so this is a program of really tapping into our, I don't know if I am going to use this word, I'll use it anyway, our divine nature. Nick, I would say he's like a partner in crime, just like I'm in the mental health industry, he's in the music industry. And he's someone who doesn't play small. I can tell you that. He plays big, and his Three Principles book, I think, is the only book about the principles in the music industry. I have got to know Nick more closely since last year when we both signed up for the AJC school. He's taking the music industry by storm, but when he talk to you, you are so down to earth. You're someone who is so easy to connect and speak to, and then you're always really giving. And I have to say this, I won't ever forget the last day of the AGC school back in March this year, when you stood up in front of all our colleagues and you acknowledged me. It was so very powerful and very moving. I still remember it to this day, and I was thinking, like, wow, I never even saw that as a possibility for me, and for someone to acknowledge me so powerfully, it was just like mind blowing, as if that gave me permission to step up to another version of me. So this is who Nick Bottini is for me. So Nick, thank you so much. Welcome.
Ronnie, what a gem you are and what an honor it is to be here. I'm so delighted to be here with you.
Thank you. And Nick, I knew I wanted you to be part of the program, and I love your creativity. I love your style. I love everything about you. We can go on and on about that. And there is something, as a musician, you can't help but be creative. And I'm going to ask you about your document in a minute. You create multiple programs. You are a coach, you're a powerful coach. And the latest program you had was something about creation. Say a bit about why you created the program and what's the essence that people took away from signing up for the program with you.
Yeah, okay. So it is called the Creative Recharge, and it's for people who both either call themselves a creative or the people who don't call themselves a creative. And often people tend to fall into one of those categories. And it's about, we'll have certain areas of our life, whoever we are, there'll be certain areas where we'll be more tapped into, more tuned into our natural creativity. So like musicians, for example, or artists, they may identify and go, I'm a creative, I do this professionally, so that they'll be very comfortable in their creativity, maybe around songwriting, let's say. But there'll be other areas that won't seem to work so well for them, or that it won't seem like creativity is part of the equation. So maybe in their finances, or maybe in their personal relationships, or maybe in their relationship with themselves. They might just think, oh, I am the way that I am, or my husband or my wife is the way that they are. And they don't realize that creativity is not something out there, it's something that's within them. And it's the same for the people who, they don't think that they are creative at all, and they don't realize that idea is a creation. They've created this story that I'm not creative. They've made that up, right? The creative recharge is, it's a bit of a metaphor. It's a bit like you plug yourself into the mains, you plug yourself into the source of creativity, and you realize actually that you can take that same creativity you have and you can put it in the places that you want to put it. So there's an infinite source of creativity, and we can put it where we want. Now, we're not talking about creative like some people are artists and some people aren't. It's just there's a kind of innate kind of creativity, like the way that we use the power of consciousness, of the power of the mind, and create interesting new thoughts, ideas, possibilities, stuff, relationships.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah, I think Steve Hardison says that we are never not creating. We are constantly creating, but we never see ourselves as being creative enough to create, being creative enough to create anything. But unconsciously, we are creating all the time, and we are being creative creating.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So this is the point where I would like to ask you about your document. First of all, what do they mean by the document? I would like you to talk about the document and what it means to you, and also how has life shifted for you in a way since you created, talking about creativity and creation, since you created a document and who you're being in the world.
Yeah, so to me, the document is a series of statements that I, with the help of a coach, I uncovered so that they were excavated deep from within my being. And there are deep truths about myself that are things, various points in my history I had either been conditioned out of or I had conditioned myself out of. And so there was this potential or these possibilities within me, this essence of me that had been denied or forgotten or what have you. And through this process that creates it, these sentences were intuitively channeled. They're not truths, capital T, but they're pointers. They feel like little road signs to the absolute essence of what I am. If I speak from this place, then it reminds me who I actually am, or it reconnects me in some way. And there's something about the way that those words that I chose, they have very special meaning to me. It's not just the surface, it's that they have all kinds of implications, and there's these subtle ambiguities within them where there are layers to what each one of them means. So there's like they're living, breathing, dynamic reminders. Having uncovered those, and which is some of them are they're bold, they're all pretty bold, and they feel very energizing to me. So reading it or saying it or um, thinking about it, it calls me to be my highest self. And I must say that it is something that has had, probably of all the personal development work, quote unquote, I've done, it's been the most transformative thing I've ever done in my entire life, because like this idea of having subconscious negative beliefs, negative self-talk sort of in the background, the process clears the clutter out, and it means that I wasn't subconsciously getting in my way in quite the way that I once was. And it's every cell of my being is now being who I want to be and heading in the direction that I'm here to head in. It's had this incredible aligning, integrating influence on me, and it's meant instantly I found it much easier to sell my services as a coach. I found it much easier to take very bold life moves. I've made some very bold life moves. As I've reinvented myself quite a few times, and it's only relatively recently that I've had a document, but I've really felt like life has begun, actually. And decades of bullshit has been, I'm still letting go of some of it. There's gradually a completely new me emerging, a really authentic me. And I'm unashamedly owning the magnitude of what that guy is. And he's someone to be noted. He's someone of a significance, let's say.
Yeah.
I love him.
Not everyone can say that. You know what you just said and how we ended it. I just love him. I love him. So this is so powerful. This is so touching, and this is deep work. And some people who might have heard people talk about the document might have thought, oh, this is just a series of like positive affirmations put together, and those positive affirmations become these pointers, and there's a good feeling. And we both know that it's not. So if anyone gets very curious and saying, how come Nick Bottini is saying that of everything he has done, this has really landed for him? How would you say, if they are considering, first of all, to read more about it or to do some work, what would be your best advice?
I'm glad I went through the process with a coach who had been guided through it by Steve Hardison and had committed himself to the process of making a document. So I think working with someone who has gone deep into the document process themselves, I think because it's the deepest work I've ever encountered. And I think having someone to guide through that, because it's so easy in that stuff, it's so easy to resist it and to avoid it, because that's the way that kind of negative thinking is been held in place for so long, because it's had so much of an emotional charge. So I think having someone by your side to guide you through the process, like Dr. Rani Bora, for example, to help someone create a document, I think that's very important. But I think that aside, I think that as far as I can tell, what powerful part of it, the most powerful part of it, is truly meeting those old conditionings with love and forgiveness. That seems to be, and I'd never really had it pointed out so clearly and experienced it so clearly, that all of the suffering I'd ever encountered had only ever really come from my thinking about what had happened or what I'd done or whatever. But it was all mine. And then realizing that actually I could forgive myself for having created that suffering in that specific way. And that actually after all those years of suffering, it was actually okay underneath my story that I had made. It was just thinking. It didn't look like thinking. So it's not like I could escape it initially. But when I came to see that it was thinking and I genuinely forgave it, it didn't have any charge anymore. And it meant I could take a fresh look. If I'm not that, then what is true? If that stuff wasn't true, what is actually true here? And then lean into that. If that's true, what's the fullest extent of that truth that's under that? And these amazing statements come up. And these amazing, well, it's not even about the statement, it's the place within yourself that it helps you access. It's this incredible power, depth, truth. So going through the process with someone that knows what they're doing, and also making the whole thing grounded in love. That's the answer.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nick. I wanted to take out one line from your document and wanted to ask you to expand on that. And the line is, I am that I take full responsibility for the outcomes in my life. Now, anyone listening to this or the statement is like, yes, I can take responsibility for the outcomes if it's my doing, but what about if it's someone else's doing? Why should I take responsibility for the outcomes in my life because of what someone else has done? Surely you have done a bit of work around this, and this is why this statement has come up. Can you say a bit more?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I guess what I'm hearing you say is like there can be this thing that people can hear, it's my fault for. It's like I'm to blame for. That there were these places in my life where I was creating myself effectively as the victim of circumstance, as the victim of that person, as the victim of a particular kind of person. And in that creation, in that kind of self I made, there was nothing that I could do. I was resigned to the fact that there was nothing to do whatsoever. When I'm fully prepared to engage, really engage, as if I do have responsibility for the number of ones and zeros in my bank account, for the level of happiness, when I feel that's actually my work, my job, my game to play, and I'm not giving it to somebody else, but I really take on the whole challenge, the challenge of life, then I can play full out. If I don't take on responsibility, then when I lose, it's like, oh, I wasn't really trying my heart. It was his fault or her fault or my past. And there's always this kind of weakness to it. But it's, for me, it's like playing to win, or playing to live. Maybe that's better. Playing full out to actually really be like I can create, like I actually can create the results that I want. And it's just a place to come from. It's not, we're not saying that some things seem to be under our control, some things seem to not be in our control. A whole debate about free will, whatever. I'm not really interested in what's true by the letter of the law, but I know that taking on this way of being as a human being, as a separate self, it can be a really useful stance, right? But without getting too weird and esoteric about it, it doesn't mean that you can't also relax that as well. So it's, I have full responsibility, and I also am completely open to life happening and life unfolding. They're not opposites, they both fit together. But one part of it is I do show up fully in my life and I do take responsibility, and the other part is I let go when I need to let go. They go together, there's no conflict there.
That's so beautiful. You know, what I'm hearing is ownership, taking full ownership of my life. That doesn't mean like I'm taking ownership as in trying to be in control and not let go. So it's a relaxed way of ownership. I know the times when I need to let go and the times when I need to see how I need to show up. That's really beautiful. And that brings back to that creative potential we have. And this is what I am pointing people to in this 6 months empowerment blueprint program. There is like a superficial level we can play in and we get results. When you say I play full in, the results we are getting is more of what I want to create in my life and taking ownership of that. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Nick.
I want to add something, actually. I don't know if this is something that your folks know about already, but part of the reason I guess those words came out of me was that I was invited to read a book by Nathaniel Branden called Taking Responsibility, which is an absolutely incredible book. Absolutely incredible book, Taking Responsibility by Nathaniel Branden. Some psychology, self-help books, they're just a nice read, but this one really kicked my ass. Like, it was, there was nowhere to hide, and it was so thorough and such a really clear articulation of these secret places where I hadn't noticed I was doing victimhood. In the back of the book, there's these incredible sentence exercises that even if you don't read the book, these sentences in the back, it's just a phenomenal book. That word responsibility for me is always associated with that book, because it was a real baptism of fire reading that book and going through the process. If that's the one that you've drawn out there, that needs to be said as well, because that book is incredible.
Oh wow, I haven't read it, but now it's in my like textbook to join the club in a way. But I'm conscious of time, and I just wanted to say, Nick, this has been super rich conversation, and you are coming back to the group to just share in a masterclass. I think that all the participants are very lucky to have you and for you to share your insights, your wisdom, and everything you've just talked about, but in a expanded version. So I'm delighted to have you once again, Nick, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Absolute pleasure.